We are talking about graphing quadratic inequalities, and we want to be able to graph quadratic inequalities in two variables. So we have the inequality y is greater than or equal to 2x squared minus 3x plus 1. So it's in standard form. So the first thing we want to do is we want to calculate our axis of symmetry. And the equation for axis of symmetry is x equals, the negative is always there, the divide sign is always there, and the 2 is always there. The thing that changes is our b value and our a value change as the inequality changes. So we can substitute those values in. So again, the negative stays, the divide sign stays, and the 2 stays. And then we have to figure out what our values are. So in this case, the a value is equal to 2. And the b value is equal to negative 3. And the c value is equal to 1. So we can reduce this, and we get x equals 3 over 4. So we can go ahead and graph that on our axis of symmetry, and we can count this one by ones. So this is going to be 5, 5, negative 5, negative 5. And 3/4 is very close to 1, but not quite. So we'll have to draw a line . So this is x equals 3/4. It doesn't have to be exact, getting a sketch there. So we know that our vertex is going to be located at 3/4, and then some y value. So in order to calculate our vertex, we need to use our x. We need to use our x as 3/4 and substitute it into the equation or inequality. So y is greater than or equal to 2 times 3/4 squared minus 3 times 3/4 plus 1. So we can substitute 3/4 in. And we can multiply these through. Three-quarters squared is going to be 2 times 9 over 16 minus 9/4 plus 1. When we have 2 in the numerator, and we can definitely divide 2 out of the denominator, so these cancel. You're left with 9 over 8. Now we need to get a common denominator in order to subtract here. So in order to get a common denominator, if we multiply both the numerator and the denominator, so 9 times 2 is 18, and 2 times 4 is 8. We get 18 over 2. Or excuse me, 18 over 8. And another way that we can write 1 is we can add 8 over 8. So we have common denominator, so we can just add or subtract the numerator. So 9 minus 18 is negative 9, plus 8 is -1. So this is y is greater than or equal to -1/8. This is a y here. And so when we go to graph this, that's 3/4, and then this is -1/8, which is right there for our vertex. So we have 3/4 and -1/8. So when we go to graph this, I like to go and graph it by paying attention to what the a value is and compare it to the parent function. So the parent function says if we go to the right 1, then we go up 1. But at this point, we have our a value is 2. So we're going to multiply this by 2, and it's going to tell us to go up 2. Then our parent function says if you go to the right 2, 2 squared says go up 4. But now we're going to multiply that by 2. So that's actually going to tell us to go up 8. And then we can graph it that way. And it's kind of hard to see with fractions on here. But if we're at 1, or if we're at 3/4, the next point over is going to be 1 3/4. So we're going to be 1 3/4. And then if we go up, we're going to be at 7/8. If we're going up 2, we're going to go up 7/8. And then we're going to be up at 1 7/8. And then if we go over 2, we're going to be over at 2 3/4. That's 1 3/4, 2 3/4. And then if we go up 8, we're going to be off our graph. But if we were going to graph it, it would be 2 3/4. And then 8 plus -1/8 is 7 7/8. So when we go to graph the other side, we can count over. So over 1, then over 1 says -1/4. So for the x value, it's going to be -1/4. But it's still going to be 1 7/8 up. And then it's going to be -1 1/4 because we're going 2 over. And that's going to be 7 7/8. But that's going to be off our graph. This one is going to be a solid line because of the equal sign. So we can just sketch a parabola that goes through. I kind of missed my point there. And then the last thing is to check to see which side of the region we should shade. And I always like to pick 0 0 if I can. So here's 0 0. So I'm going to check to see if I should shade that region or the inside. So substitute that value in. You'll get y is greater than or equal to 2 times 0 squared minus 3 times 0 plus 1. Instead of y should be 0 because we're substituting the values in. So 0 is greater than or equal to plus 1. Is 0 greater than or equal to 1? In this case, it's false. And so we should shade the other side. So that's false. It doesn't work. So then we want to shade the other side.